Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on MediaScope's first live Friday chat for 2016. This afternoon, I'm thrilled to be joined by Rachael Lonegran. I'm saying that correctly, Rachael?
More or less, yeah.
Lonegran.
Yeah.
So I well know what that's like. And Rachael is the Strategy Director at Media Agency Foundation. Today we're going to be doing something a little offbeat, off the usual sort of core topic that we talk about, but I thought it was a nice way to start 2016. And we're going to be talking about industry health and well-being. A really good topic, a topic that I think we perhaps don't put as much emphasis on as we should, but it's certainly, a topic that's also getting a little bit of buzz, not only in our industry, but other industries. Rachael, you recently wrote an article in Mumbrella, so I want to ask you about that. Foundation recently launched a new program called Wellness Leave, so we want to get some really good information on that. Steve also, who'll be joining us soon, Steve Sinner, he wrote a very good article on walking meetings, and that was actually after I hosted him on a walking meeting late last year. He liked it so much, he then wrote an article about it, so I was thrilled about that. I should also say that I'm joining you this afternoon at my new standing desk. So I'm really getting into this wave as well. And I'd also like to thank IOTA for dressing me today. IOTA are a MediaScope partner, and I really appreciate their support. You can see on my back, I think it says something along the lines of "come and speak to a data geek." That's certainly not me. You won't get much joy there, but anyway. Rachael, if we can maybe just start off and get some more general comments while we're waiting for Steve to just get through a couple of technical issues. Why do you think this has become a topic for businesses to really start to get across and address very tangibly with their staff and their teams?
From our perspective, because we're a boutique agency and we are very proud of and very careful to nurture a culture where people feel that they can do their best work in an environment that is conducive to physical and mental health. So it's very important to us that people feel that we're kind of, we're a small team, we're a cohesive team. If there are problems across the agency, we can usually see them pretty quickly because of that. But we also wanted to kind of do something more tangible than just talk about it or think about it. And that was to offer staff something that they could actually, that they could use to really do what they need to do to feel better, both physically and mentally. But really, the goal for us as a business is retention of staff, because we know that when people get overly stressed, we see that lead to people taking a lot of sick leave. We then see people starting to become disengaged from their work, and then ultimately we see people feeling burnt out. And then what we don't want is people reaching that level and then leaving the agency or leaving the industry and taking that experience and knowledge and everything else, the fantastic stuff that they've brought to us, taking that away with them. So it's really important to us that people feel that there's a plan in place, that we don't want to see that happen.
And I like your points. One of the big industry issues that we face is churn. So churn of our staff, and also issues around, productivity, which is often associated with working long hours, working very hard, and so on. And it's certainly not the only industry that suffers that, but it's great. That's why I really picked up on what you were doing through your Mumbrella article, because it really showed, as you said, some tangible action in this regard. If you can maybe just give us some tips, Rachael, about the team at Foundation, like, the general age sphere, or the general age group, that then might reflect the broader industry, just so we can get an idea of who your new program is targeted toward.
Yeah, so we're fairly typical, I think, in terms of our demographic makeup in the agency, and the average age is very young. So I skew out the age range quite a bit at my end. at my end of the scale. But I kind of refer to our workforce as being around the age of 26.
Yeah.
So we're talking about people that have, they've finished university, they maybe got a couple of years work experience or 2 or 3 years of work experience. And for a lot of them, it's a bit of a danger period, because they're just kind of maybe getting to that point where they're wondering, and I'm not talking about foundation people here, but I'm talking about industry-wide. They're wondering if maybe they've made the right decisions about their careers, and it's not too late for them to make changes. So, they've got lots of opportunities out there at that age to kind of go and do something else, and maybe return to study or find something else to do, or whatever it is. And if that's truly the path that they need to take, then we're really supportive of that. But if it's just a matter of them feeling overwhelmed or overworked or unsupported, then it's our responsibility as managers to address that and make sure that we figure out what it is that we need to do for them, which is going to retain them in the industry. Because obviously this industry always has a huge problem in that kind of mid-level kind of range in terms of recruiting. We can always find really junior people. There's quite a few senior people around. That mid-level has always been really, really difficult to retain. So we're trying to find different strategies to kind of make sure that, we always retain and put a high value on the people who are really powering our companies. And
let's perhaps now get a bit of an understanding of the wellness leave program that you put in place. It's currently running, so it's something that's up and running now.
Yeah.
As any
live.
As any good media people do, Rachael, you're also measuring the results and the outcomes of the wellness leave. So we look forward to getting your report from that once you get some data in about it. But perhaps give us
concern expressed about that on the Mumbrella post about the collecting of data, and really the data that we're interested in is if people don't take it, because we're being quite proactive in insisting that people take the time. So if they haven't done it for some reason, then we want to make sure that we understand what's behind that. So that's really where the data analysis comes in. And also, obviously, we want to make sure that the team are supportive of that and feel that they got some benefit out of it. So it doesn't replace, there were some people who were concerned that we were putting a time limit on time out of the office, and that's not the intention of it at all. There's still going to be the need for people to do things over and above, which we're very flexible with and always supportive of. So it doesn't replace anything, it's in addition. So that's a really important point.
And I read those comments on your Mumbrella article as well, and I thought you actually countered that very well in saying the measure is really talking about who's not taking it rather than who is taking it.
Right. So we actively want people to do it. We want them to feel free to take it. I mean, I'll admit and say when we first presented it to the agency, there were a few raised eyebrows and, so you want me to take time off? And you're like, and I can do what I want? And we're like, yep, that's actually what we're saying. And there are a few people who it's not something that they've necessarily experienced before, but we're very lucky. We have a small group. We're very have a high level of trust amongst us, and we don't employ people generally who we think have the kinds of personalities that would exploit this kind of situation. So we feel very confident that the team are going to use it to their best advantage.
Very good. I think that sounds really good. If you can maybe just give us a bit of an outline, so a bit more of an insight into how the wellness leave program works. It might be something that others who view could adapt for their own needs. And I wanted to pick up on something that you just mentioned then. Do you think something like this would work for a larger team? You said that you were a smaller, kind of more family-orientated unit at Foundation, which sounds very good to me. Well done for fostering that kind of environment. But how would it work in a larger place, in a larger sort of workplace?
Yeah, I think conceptually it could work in a larger place. I think I mean we're very conscious of things like because because there's, you know, we don't have the same kind of pressures on things as, I don't know, OH&S stuff, for example. You know, I can glance around the agency pretty quickly and see who's in and who's out. But we do have, you know, we have a calendar structure in place, and really that's just about, you know, it's like, and it's an honesty system, and it's really about people letting us know that they're out of the office, and that's just for, you know, if the fire alarm goes, we need to know that people are out. I mean, that's just kind of a practical consideration. If, you know, obviously we don't schedule client meetings if people are out and those kinds of things. So there's some practical considerations, but really it's very flexible. We have a sign in, sign out type calendar in place, which our office manager is kind of the keeper of. So she kind of manages that. In terms of how people can use it, we've given people a 3-hour period of time, which was something that really just came about because
over a month period, over 3 hours
over a month. 3 hours over a month. You can't accrue it month to month. That's kind of a key thing. So the reason we came up with 3 hours, it was quite an arbitrary thing, but we kind of felt 2 hours wasn't long enough to kind of do the sorts of things that, you know, we were talking in a round table about, you know, you could apply it to this or apply it to that, and 2 hours didn't feel like it was going to be long enough. 3 hours kind of felt like it was an achievable thing. You know, it's effectively, you know, 45 minutes a week. So, you know, for us, with the different scenarios that we talked about were, you know, if you're not going to the gym because you need an extra 20 minutes to have a shower and get back to your desk, well, and so you're saying, well, I won't go, you know. So now we're saying you can go because you've got an extra 20 minutes. Now you have an extra 20 minutes that you can apply without any guilt, without any fear of being told that you're late back to your desk or whatever you think might happen. Not that we're not real clock watchers like that anyway, but we do run a business. So now you have time that you can legally apply to that time without there being any kind of negative repercussions. And in fact, the repercussions would only be positive because that's what we want you to do. So, and it ends up breaking down to be about 10 minutes a day. So if you want to, that's a 10-minute meditation session or a walk out of the office, or you could be maybe, you know, we know there are people in the office who have physiotherapy or, you know, go to psychology appointments or whatever it might be. And they don't necessarily also want to, you know, broadcast that to everybody in the office. So this is time that they can apply to whatever they need to apply it to, with the idea being that it's to promote health and wellbeing. So there really are, there's kind of no end to the scope of the kinds of scenarios that this might cover. But we're deliberately keeping it very flexible and open for the team to make the decision about how they apply it. If they apply it to, I'm leaving early on Wednesday because I need 2 hours to get my hair done, that's totally fine too, because, you know, if that makes them feel better, that's fine.
Exactly. And as you said, everyone's an individual. Everyone has their own level of things and feel good about whatever it is they're doing. How did the team take it? Like, were they really welcoming of it? Were they, you know, did they think, yes, this will be really useful to me? What was the general feedback that you got?
Yeah, I think initially, like I said, there was a little bit of a raised eyebrow, like, really? And then once the kind of skepticism wore off, because they couldn't kind of understand that we were telling them that we want them to leave their desks. Yes. You know, there's been some really positive embrace of the program, and I guess that's because we're starting to see that, you know, the calendar's getting populated with people allocating their time, which is what we want to see, you know. And so, you know, we're very it's early days. This has only been in place for this so far in February. So we began the program on the 1st of February, but we'll we'll be assessing feedback as we move forward in the program and make sure that people are kind of getting value out of it and understanding that how to use it. If they're struggling to negotiate time out to take the wellness leave, and when I say negotiate it, it's really them that need to do that, because we have a very dedicated team. You know, I like to say on the day before Australia Day, and everyone was talking about all the sickness leave that was going to be taken that day because it was a day before a public holiday. We didn't have anyone off sick. We had 100% attendance because we just have really dedicated people who enjoy what they do. So actually the biggest struggle for us is to get them to manage their time so that they can take the leave rather than, the biggest barrier is their own need to stay at their desk, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And, I recognise myself in that, while that's a, work ethic and your care and you're proactive and that sort of thing, at the end of the day, you've also got to look after yourself so you can achieve those things.
Totally.
And again, I think it's so interesting that that's that's one of the messages that we're starting to see in our industry, but, in other sectors as well. Maybe I'll just, Steve, I think he's still looking at us, but he's obviously still having issues with his browser. He hasn't called me. So maybe I'll just talk a little bit about the idea behind the walking meeting that him and I undertook late last year. And I have hosted several walking meetings since, which everyone has just really enjoyed and really got a lot out of. But I suppose I saw the idea somewhere in my vast reading that I seem to do every night, talking about someone needing some time off. And the idea for the walking meeting really came from that. And, Steve, as I said, joined me. I think he was a little bit, what's going on here, when I, contacted him the day before and said, bring your runners. He thought, what on earth am I in for here? But he came away from it really, as a firm advocate. We went for about a half hour, 45-minute walk just around my local area, and I'm lucky enough to live opposite one of the last bush tracks that's left in Sydney, so we were able to do a nice bush walk as part of that. He, as I said, he liked it so much he then wrote an article about it and actually found that this is something that is really popular in the States and has had put into it and so on. Advocates such as Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg and some of the Silicon Valley businesses seem to be putting dedicated walking meeting tracks into their complexes, which I think is really good. Some of the benefits that he was able to find and spoke about in his article were things like emphatic decision making, better problem solving, more honest exchanges, and I suppose too it kind of levels out any hierarchy because you're walking side by side, and you're doing something that we all really do instead of out of that office situation. So really, I have found it really beneficial. And I think the key thing that he really highlighted also after our walking meeting was that he came away feeling very, very switched on and very revived from it. So I recommend it. I know it might be hard with shoes and clothes, particularly in Sydney's humidity. I'm lucky enough that, again, I work from home and I certainly don't dress like I do when, you see me face to face, Rachel. Understand.
But why would you?
Exactly. Really recommend, if you can give it a go. I think he also in his article suggested a couple of different walking tracks. And one of the tracks that he suggested was the media agency walk. So I think it's akin to a pub crawl, but instead you walk from the media agency, which I thought was kind of good. So,
Well, we kind of utilise that idea, I guess, without actually having called it a walking meeting. But we have clients around the city. We're based right in the middle of the CBD, and we have clients that are, they're a 5-minute cab ride away, 5 or 6 minute cab ride away through Sydney traffic, or a 20-minute brisk walk. So we actually have, when we're going to see particular clients, half of the team will jump in a cab because they, that's what they want to do. I tend to walk. I prefer to walk, and our managing director Lachlan, he prefers to walk. So quite often he and I are powering through the city, And I pick up a lot of, it's great because, obviously we chat the whole time and we're talking about what's happening with the business and things that we need to focus on and prioritise. And it is a really valuable use of that 20 minutes, So the only thing I have to watch out for is that his legs are about twice as long as mine. Yes. So, I have to take 2 steps for every step he takes. But other than that, Yeah, and then I get to the other side, and when we go into a meeting, and yeah, to your point, you know, you've actually, you're actually more regenerated than you would be if you're sitting in the back of a stinky cab in Sydney in the middle of peak traffic, you know, and you're not going very far. It feels a bit silly sometimes, but you know, we do silly things when it's raining or if you're wearing high heels or whatever, you know. But to your point, you know, like you're saying, you know, you're at home and you're dressed for that and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's really not difficult to pop a little pair of flat shoes in your bag. I've always got a pair of flat shoes hanging around. In fact, I actually rarely wear heels, rarely wear them. I'm not a heels wearer generally. But when I do, I always have a pair of flats in my bag because I never know when I'm going to need them.
You never know, Rachel, that's exactly right. Look, I think there's lots of ways that we can put, you know, sort of exercise into our daily routine without it being too much of a hardship. And I love that idea of, you know, instead of hopping in a cab where you're sitting in frustrating traffic in Sydney, you just walk it.
Just walk, you know. And I worked in New York for 3 years, and the standard way of getting across the city to see clients there was walking, number one, or number two, the subway, because getting in a cab to go across the city would take you 3 times longer. So I'm a walker, and I'm proud of it. And yeah,
I'm a walker too. I just want to touch on Stan. Oh, Steve's here. Oh my goodness, let's let him in, see what happens.
Oh wow. Well done, Steve.
Basically covered his bit. We'll see if he can. Oh, I can't see him come through yet. We'll keep going. I just wanted to touch also on.
Definitely getting there.
He's definitely getting there. I wanted to touch also on standing desks. You mentioned before that you're Lachlan, wasn't it?
Lachlan has one and I have one. So we, you know what, we've got the ghetto version of the standing desk in that we went to IKEA and bought a little coffee table. We actually measured it based on, you know, standard height, what would we need. So we didn't go and buy the, you know, thousands of dollars Varidesk, which a lot of people have now. I go and visit media owners and there's quite a few people with those kinds of desks, which are really impressive and awesome. But what we did was we just went and bought a cheap little IKEA number because we felt like we wanted to test it to see if we would use that, and if we use that, then maybe we would consider investing to the next level. So I was really good at it for a while.
Yes.
I think the shoes and the hard floor thing probably means I do it less. And talking about it, I feel like I need to do it a lot more. Lachlan does it. He's a stickler. I mean, I rarely see him. He doesn't sit down much at all. The benefits. I mean, we've both actually. You know, we've both improved our health through in the last sort of 6 months. And it's not been it's not something that we're on a mission to do, but it's. But you can see the benefits of the standing desk in terms of posture. You burn more calories. You actually feel less tired at the end of the day. When I do use the standing desk, you know, that 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock slump, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to happen as much. So when you sometimes I'm poring over a laptop and I'm all kind of hunched over, and that's probably when the 4 o'clock slump happens a lot. Yeah. So there's something about that physicality of standing up that is really interesting, that makes you feel a lot less fatigued. So, it's definitely something that we'd recommend to people. We've offered it to anybody in the team who'd want to do it. Some people don't like doing it because, especially if you're an open plan and you're kind of standing up over the person opposite you. Yes. So that's something that we're still trying to figure out how to overcome that at the moment. Obviously, ideally, everybody would have standing desks to kind of overcome that.
And it works that way. Steve, I can see that you're in, but we can't see you. Maybe just try refreshing that page and trying to come in again. Sorry about the technical issues that you're having, Steve. I think that's really good, and I recognise that with myself too, Rachel, that I'm constantly, you know, over something. And so really, when I got onto standing desks, I thought, yes, that's, you know, something I want to do. I was at an agency last Friday, and I want to talk about that toward the end of our chat. And similar thing, a lot of people are starting to get the old IKEA coffee table and making their own version of the standing desk.
Yeah, and it's a cheap, easy solution. And it's a really great way to kind of assess if that's going to work for you or not. So, rather than going to start ordering $1,000 desks, just try that and see if it works for you.
Exactly. And, I've got one for my birthday last week. I don't think it's one of the $1,000 ones, but I was really thrilled to get it. Someone I used to sit next to at Fairfax Digital actually now runs a business that sells standing desks. I don't think they're coming into the country until mid-year, but when they do come, he's already promised that I can offer a discount to some of my contacts. So I'll certainly promote just because I thought it was such a well, no, not really. I mean, I just thought it was, it was a win-win for everyone, really. It was a win for our, my contacts if they wanted to take it up, and it obviously helped him and his new business out as well. Let's now move to news of our media week. Really want to have time to get back onto the business of the day. Right. Let's have a quick chat about, Rachel, what's been on your radar, both that you've done this week and maybe in the broader industry?
Oh gosh, I should have prepared something to talk about that. What has been happening today? I'm kind of out of the loop.
Well, all right. Well, I will let you know. I mean, of course, there's been some movement around, some people going from agency to agency, some new pieces of business being picked up. I suppose the couple of big things that happened, probably more toward the back end of last week, was ADMA acquiring AMIA. So, one of our industry organisations, AMIA, and perhaps one of our original industry organisations. They've been around for some time. Really, I think, they would agree, kind of struggled to find their way. ADMA, which seems to be the powerhouse industry organisation at the moment, sort of came in and acquired the AMIA membership. They're still saying that they'll be operating under the AMIA brand, but that will be very interesting. ADMA, of course, this week also launched quite a large training piece, and I'll actually be talking to Jodie Sangster, the head of ADMA, next Friday. We'll be doing a live chat with her next Friday, talking about their new training initiatives. Super Bowl this week, I mean, that seemed to create a little bit of buzz. Huge amounts spent on 30-second commercials. Seems to be something that's often spoken about. And now, of course, we talk increasingly about the social media presence that's attached to that. So, they've got Facebook going, Twitter going, and numerous other platforms.
Well, I read a comment, somebody saying, you used to watch the Super Bowl for the ads, and now, of course, the ads get released a week before or 3 days before, or so so the actual game itself is, if that's what you're doing it for, there's no reason to watch it, apart from Beyonce. I mean, she was a great reason to watch it, but it's one of those things where if you're there to see the advertising, there's no reason to be watching the game anymore. So I'm not sure about that strategy, but and I, having worked in the US, and I've worked on brands that have done Super Bowl ads and things like that. And also times have changed a lot, because the increase in reach through social media is so great that maybe finally it's worth doing in terms of the ROI for the cost of making those things. But what we've seen from the ads that get the most social media interest are the ones where clients are prepared to take a risk. And there's not a lot of those kinds of people around, to be honest. So, you have to be a risk taker to really get the benefit out of that.
Absolutely. And, that's a big lot of coin to sort of be risky with. But I think you're so right too, Rachel. I think you're so right too, Rachel, in saying that, the 30-second ad shown during the Super Bowl is really just one component of the reach that you've now through different platforms. And indeed,
absolutely.
That very relied upon. I suppose too today, the Emma readership came out, and we looked at the top 10 news and current affairs sites. I know Mumbrella were talking about Yahoo coming into the top 10 again after a while being out of that. And of course, the Audit Bureau put out their newspaper and magazine figures that was released this morning. I must admit, I've not had a chance to have a great look at that yet. Newsletter day for me this morning, as many would know. But think,
and I haven't either. I guess my comment about news portal readerships and news masthead readerships, particularly in the digital space. Obviously, the interesting thing for me, and I have worked in the newspaper industry, so I know it quite well. The challenge used to be the migration of readers from the printed product to the digital product. Now what they have is people not ever entering the digital product because they're getting their news through media aggregators.
Yes.
And media aggregators are finding their audience through social platforms like Facebook. So this is a huge implication to the growth potential of the newspaper mastheads online. If they're not getting the clicks through to their sites, how are they going to monetize that? So it's a real watch out for me at the moment, is understanding where those audiences are moving and how they're developing, and the growth of Facebook as the news channel of the generation.
Yes, anecdotally, I'm speaking to a couple. I mean, I'm a news junkie, so I know a lot of current.
Me too.
At the moment for me also, as you know, Rachel, because you've seen, I do operate on my Denise Shrivel account, and I get very into politics on my Denise Shrivel account. Rightly or wrongly, it drives my husband insane because I get angry.
Yeah, it's worth getting angry about.
I think so too, Rachel. Thank you for saying that. Some people I've spoken to anecdotally, again, have been saying to me that they get all of their news through Facebook. And I must admit, as a news junkie, I kind of recoil in horror at that a little, because I like to visit multiple sources.
Yeah. So it's still the same news, though. It's still the same news written by the same sources. It's just being delivered in a different format by the media aggregator sites rather than through the news mastheads themselves. So that's where it becomes kind of interesting, is the dynamic of that audience flow and where their source of news originates from. So it's a huge challenge because, like I said, the newspaper industry for ages have been talking about the reach that you're now missing in the printed product, or you can make up in the digital product. And it's like, well, what if you can't? What if you can't do that anymore? What if they've capped that out because now that incremental reach is actually going towards the media aggregators? So it's a huge dilemma and challenge for them, I think.
A big dilemma, I think, too, and challenge. As you say, too, a monetization challenge.
Yeah, if you don't have the numbers, to talk about, how do you know that you're delivering the ROI that clients are requiring?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I suppose, again, getting a bit, if we look at the deeper implication, there's a risk that the editorial content, and some of the content we can live without, there's no doubt about it, but it's also, newspapers were or are supposed to be a way to inform us about what's going on in business, in government, social services and so on. We really do need a vibrant, healthy, fourth estate. And at the moment,
yeah, I agree.
At the moment, that is kind of, their monetization models are under threat. Are under real threat. So yes, a real concern.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, we've been seeing for a while a very populist editorial policy happening, particularly in digital channels, because of the algorithms that pull popular stories to the top. So that's it's one of those things, do you get the news that you actually, people complain about newspapers and about the way that they're structured and digital newspapers. But the reason they're seeing those stories is because those are the popular stories, and we should be reading about Syria and about, the things that are happening in the world that are terrible and that we should be understanding more of, and, politics and things like that, the complicated things. But they're hard to read about. So those stories get pushed further down. So, you kind of get what you pay for in a way, and when I say pay for, you're paying for it with your eyeballs. And if you're not, if those stories are not the popular stories, they're going to get pushed down the rankings of the page, which is a real concern in terms of just general knowledge and information in the population.
I think that's exactly right, Rachel. I mean, yes, don't get me started on, but then if you put a level of bias on it because of who you're owned by, then that kind of comes into it partly as well. But I still think, broad readership, so you can get, lots of different opinions, kind of gets you somewhere toward the truth, if that is possible.
But I have some sympathy though for the publishers, because obviously they're putting, those stories. There's a lot of people today talking about, Kanye's live show in New York, and we all know about it because that's the story that's being fed to us because it's the popular story. There's obviously many other things happening in the world today that we're not hearing about, but they're businesses. Newspapers are businesses. They have to make money.
That's exactly.
So they're actually not, believe it or not, a public service. They're a business. So, thank God for the ABC who are there as the kind of independent voice. But, that's the thing that a lot of people forget about newspapers is that if they're not able to monetize the audience, they don't have a business. So there are a lot of constraints on them and how they can behave in order to achieve that audience. If the audience is actually saying, yeah, we want to hear about Kanye, and not Libya, not Syria. Well, those are the dilemmas that the newspaper publishers are facing, and it's a terrible position to be in. The audience has to accept some responsibility for the way the newspapers are faring.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Will Cross Music, who's watching us live, has sent us a note to say, I like what was said about newspapers. So thank you, Will. Thank you for joining us. Rachel, wanted to pick you up a little bit on the ABC. There's, of course, a lot of controversy about the ABC at the moment. In the news, particularly pertaining to the NBN. That's something that I'm going to start talking about a lot more seriously. And a lot more in depth, because I think it is a topic that as an industry we need to be aware of, and I'll come back to that in the coming weeks. I saved something from last Sunday's paper because I wanted to have a chat about it today. I thought it would be interesting, but did anyone see this on the back page of the Sun Herald? I thought that this was a big fail. So
just so you know, I can hear you, Denise, but I can't see you anymore. So.
Oh. All right, I'll tell you what it says. It's an ad on the back page of last Sunday's Sun Herald. It says, just like David Bowie. And
I saw that.
Service.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I just looked at that and said, who on earth let that through at Fairfax?
It's very distasteful, and I don't think there was anybody who thought that was a great idea. There is something to be said for tactically engaging with a current event in channels. That's clearly not the way to go about it.
Yes, I agree. I'd love a good tactical ad. The few that I've been involved in my time have been so exciting to be involved in. I mean, that is advertising that's when you're living advertising. You see an idea and you run with it. And of course, there's huge approval processes involved and so on. But no, the back page of the Sun Herald, Fairfax, get the thumbs down from me on that one today.
It's a shame that one.
I think so. I think it's a real shame they let that one through. It is. It looks like it is a small business, so possibly not a creative agency involved. I hope not anyway. But certainly the media would have had to let that one through. Will Cross Music, again, does great content get ignored over popular stories? That's what we were just speaking about, Will, and I think we have to say a big yes. Rachel, you're planning for next week. What's on your radar for next week? Anything coming up?
Oh, gosh. Really busy, Denise. I mean, we've as a business, we've hit the ground running this year. We've got a lot of momentum behind us, and lots of new business stuff coming through. So yes, and so my focus over the next week is really about growth of the business, and that growth is actually, it's really interesting. So it's growth in existing clients as well. We've had a couple of clients that have had amazing years, and the benefit of that is in their increased marketing budgets, which I'm back.
Oh, good. I don't know what happened then. It just disappeared.
I don't know. It just stopped. Everything just stopped.
Anyway, we're recording now. So, that's all right. Yeah, it just stopped anyway.
I mean, the focus for us is just more of the same over the next few weeks. Yeah, we've got some really exciting projects in the fire, so nothing I can talk about on here, but yeah, lots of really exciting stuff happening.
What do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about?
Oh my God!
Now I can see Steve. Hi, Steve.
I have to say, finding an app in this country is a bit like hunting buffalo. Have I contributed?
Congratulations, Steve gets the Pandora t-shirt. He said the magic word, which was buffalo.
It's been fantastic. It's a great chat.
Oh, thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And I will get you involved in the coming weeks again now that we've done this. And I do apologise that you had some problems. We've stopped recording now, but there's still quite a few people watching us live.
Recording.
Glad is glad.
I do have one thing for you. I went to a Orange Line panel talk last night, and they've got automatic adjustable desks for everyone. They're amazing. I was trying to find a brand name on the back, but you can basically completely up and down the height. So you want to see?
Yeah, they're probably the very desk ones, which are really expensive, but fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good piece of kit. Oh, well.
Excellent. Steve, we'll talk about something else in the coming weeks, but we'll get you involved again. My week next week, nothing, too outstanding, just, more of the same, but we're definitely now coming into event season.
Yeah.
I've got a programmatic summit coming up in a couple of weeks, AdTech, Mumbrella 360, of course, this year is looking bigger than Ben-Hur. A couple of meetups coming on, awards, so Mumbrella 360, awards are now open. BNT 30 under 30 opened this morning. Ad News Agency of the Year awards will be coming up in the coming weeks. So event and award season is about to begin for 2016, and won't we have fun?
Yeah, they're always fun, and it's always interesting when you're a judge to see, the quality of work and how other people approach things and all that stuff. So I really enjoy being a judge on those kinds of things, because it gives me a lot of hope for the business, because you see some really smart people with some really smart ideas, and yeah, it's great.
And you and I, Rachel, were a judge at Mumbrella Awards last year. Hey, what an exhausting! I mean, it's a wonderful process, and I really enjoyed it. But gee, exhausting. It's a really long day.
Yeah.
But as you said, a good day, and good to see, the range of different people and ideas that are out there. Steve, your week next week.
Yeah, hey, look, despite contributing absolutely nothing to this fantastic debate, I wouldn't mind plugging something for next week. And actually, on social media, I think one of the main things in the last week has been, the death of Sydney nightlife. There was this really good article by the guy who heads up Freelancer that's gone very viral about the last person out, turn off the lights. And there's been parts of this have gone into mainstream news, I think. And, there's a very funny satirical piece, I don't know if you've seen it on Facebook in the last couple of days, that says 4 teenagers in a goon bag in Hyde Park have just been voted the most happening venue in Sydney. But in the context of that, and despite my zero contribution, can I plug, there's going to be, my new Cuban band is playing at the Gasoline Pony. Can you read that?
Oh,
Gasoline
wow.
Pony.
Oh, wow.
This Tuesday at the Gasoline Pony. If anyone's near Marrickville, let's keep this town open. Pop on down about 9 o'clock.
Good on you, Stephen. I love that sign. Obviously, went through art direction and content and copywriting.
Well, you know why I'm in media, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. I think we know why I'm in media. But we might wrap there, Steve. I'm so sorry that didn't get you in sooner, but you and I will speak offline, and I'll get you involved in the live chat in the coming weeks. Rachel, thank you so much. Exactly. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and well done on your initiative with Foundation Wellness Leave. And we'll get you back in a couple of months where you can give us some of your sort of findings.
Yep, sounds great.
Great.
Me too.
Wonderful. So thank you. Have a good afternoon and have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Good weekend all. Apologies.
Oh, no worries, Steve. I'm sorry. I don't know. Anyway, let's log off. And
I can log out, eh? Let's see if I can log out quicker than I logged in.
Exactly. Thanks for joining, guys. See you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Steve. All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us too live. Been a good chat. Go to mediascope.com.au and I'll put the replay up there. Thank you very much.